Okay, we are rolling. We are rolling, brother. It's been a minute, hasn't it, guys? Champions of Champions Boxing Talk is back after a little bit of a break. Well, we've got a big one coming up, haven't we? Clash of the Titans. Errol Spence Jr. v Showtime Shawn Porter. How will this fight play out? Well, I can only give you a synopsis and a prediction. We can only all do that. Because boxing is full of surprises, isn't it? Who'd have thought that Andy Ruiz would have beaten Anthony Joshua? Not many, but it was possible. There were a few who were saying Andy Ruiz was greater than he was given credit for, and that more than proved to be the case. Who'd have thought Tyson Fury would have had his eye busted in what should have been just a mandatory easy defence of his lineal title last time out? No one. That ended up an absolute war, right? So we move on forward to Anthony Yarde v Sergey Kovalev. Many people thought that might have been a 5 or 6 round job for Kovalev, but Kovalev was almost nearly knocked out in the 8th round. Let's not forget that. Anthony Yarde was one quality punch away from ending that fight. Of course, when the other guy wins, that causes people to lose memory and not remember the true story of a fight. There are a lot of people saying, Shawn Porter's just going to go in there and get blasted. Blasted out of the water. Well, maybe I accept that Errol Spence is the favourite in this fight. But blasted out the water, I am not so certain. It would not surprise me one bit if Errol Spence ended up having to cope with more than enough drama from Shawn Porter that Tyson Fury and Sergey Kovalev suffered. After all, Shawn Porter at world level is far more experienced than Anthony Yarde. And look, again, Anthony Yarde gave Kovalev some damage that Canelo Alvarez will be thankful for, I can tell you that. Tyson Fury, that eye has probably, delayed the rematch with Deontay Wilder. He got into such a war. That guy who Tyson Fury fought had never fought much at all. Certainly not the competition that Shawn Porter has faced and beaten in his career, right? So don't be surprised if Errol Spence, to win, has to go through some drama in this fight. Also, don't be surprised if the unthinkable happens and Shawn Porter's style disrupts Errol Spence so much that the upset happens and Shawn Porter wins. Again, this is boxing. Always be prepared to be right when you make a decision or a prediction. But never be shocked to be wrong, because this is boxing. You play other sports, but you don't play boxing. You live boxing, you have to. This is the hurt game. Anything is possible. Why is it possible, first of all, for Shawn Porter to surprise people in this fight? I just watched some highlights of Errol Spence v Mikey Garcia. That is a guy that made his debut at welterweight. Mikey Garcia is not accustomed to fighting at welterweight at all. Mikey Garcia really didn't throw many punches in that fight at all. Mainly because of what Errol Spence was doing. He was the guy that was using his jab, using boxing skills, actually outgunning Mikey Garcia from the outside, right? But he went the distance. He was absorbing in the latter parts of that fight punches galore Mikey Garcia to head and body. He went the distance with Errol Spence. Coming up from a very much lighter weight than Errol Spence, because let me tell you one thing, Mikey Garcia is no welterweight, neither is Errol Spence. Errol Spence could easily be fighting right now at 154 pounds comfortably. So Mikey Garcia fought a guy and went the distance with a guy 3 weight classes above. If Mikey Garcia can take that punch, are you guys telling me that Shawn Porter drops the first jab he takes from Errol Spence? I'm not so sure. Shawn Porter is known. Is Shawn Porter not the guy that in the latter parts of Danny Garcia match walked through some of Danny Garcia's punches? Danny Garcia is a pretty good puncher. Was Shawn Porter not the same guy that went the distance with Kell Brook, who was at his peak at that point? At his peak. And arguably, that fight could have gone either way. Was Shawn Porter not the same guy that took leather from Keith Thurman for a good 12 rounds? Yes, he was. Some people had that fight real close. It could have gone either way. Even Keith Thurman admitted that it was a close fight. Is Shawn Porter not the same guy that has gone through many sparring sessions with future Hall of Famer and all-time great Manny Pacquiao? Never has there been a report from Team Pacquiao or Team Porter that Shawn Porter has been iced or knocked out in those sparring sessions. So you're not talking of a scrub here in Shawn Porter. Mikey Garcia did not let his hands go. Mikey Garcia did not get in there and back Errol Spence up enough. Mikey Garcia did not throw shots to the body. As Lennox Lewis said, he couldn't win that fight without throwing punches. Mikey Garcia was looking for the perfect punch because he's a technician. Shawn Porter will throw leather. Shawn Porter will try to back you up. Shawn Porter will try and go to the body. Shawn Porter, using rough and tumble tactics, will try and get you out of your rhythm if you are using boxing skills, because that's how you do it. Shawn Porter, never been stopped. Shawn Porter, as far as I know, very rarely dropped. The shot that Adrian Broner dropped Shawn Porter with was fantastically timed and executed. But Shawn Porter rose to his feet and won the match. Right? What do we know about Shawn Porter? He has the heart of a lion. Initially, when I was breaking this fight down, I compared this fight to, I think it's the T-700 in the Terminator films against the T-1000, the T-800, sorry. Arnold Schwarzenegger v. the Liquid Guy. And Schwarzenegger won. Because people underestimated that particular model of Terminator. There were so many advantages that the liquid metal one had, it got complacent. But the T-800 was constantly evolving, learning, and it had a mission to protect. It had something to fight for. It was the underdog, right? Shawn Porter is the T-800 in this fight. Errol Spence has got the jab. He proved he had boxing skills, didn't he? People say he proved he could fight from the outside, he could be a thinking man's boxer, and he could also, go in there and throw hell for leather. I was actually quite disappointed that he didn't stop Mikey Garcia, to be honest with you. It did lead a few questions about Errol Spence in my mind, to be fair. Right? These will be answered against Shawn Porter, I think. Right? But we know Errol Spence can box. We know he's got pedigree. The Olympic background is there. But also, let's look at the amateurs. Do you know Shawn Porter has victories over Daniel Jacobs and Usyk? Usyk, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, Shawn Porter beat in the amateurs. You just can't ignore this guy. I'm telling you. He could surprise people. I'm expecting an Errol Spence very hard-fought win. It would not surprise me if it went the other way. But I'm expecting Errol Spence to leave that ring busted up hard. And for whoever the follow-up guy to fight the winner of this, rubbing his hands. I'm expecting a war of wars. I'm expecting at least as tough a fight as he had against Kell Brook. Maybe tougher because I think Shawn Porter can absorb more punishment than Kell Brook. I think Shawn Porter, being the smaller guy, could sort of use head movement to be evasive with the jab and get in there and make the fire really hot for Errol Spence. I think Shawn Porter is not afraid of taking a punch or two to get in there and land his own. Errol Spence so far, aside from the Kell Brook fight, has had most of his career gone his own way in terms of being a professional. Most of the guys he's fought, it is just a given that he was going to beat those guys. Now he's in with a live dog. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, Porter doesn't psychologically look ready and blah, blah, blah. When the bell goes, that doesn't matter. It's what happens in the fight, not what happens in the press conferences. I'm expecting Errol Spence to have to make adjustments, to have to use an uppercut when Shawn Porter darts his way in. But that has to be ringing somewhere in Errol Spence's mind. I couldn't stop a world-class lightweight. I know Mikey Garcia is considered a pound-for-pound fighter, a world-class lightweight, but physical, he is that size. And Errol Spence is supposed to be a destroyer. Look at what Gennady Golovkin did to Kell Brook. Look at what Canelo Alvarez did to Amir Khan. Yet you got this guy fighting a guy 2 or 3 weight classes lower, and he just couldn't drop him, never mind stop him, right? So that has got to be playing in his mind. Hit Shawn Porter, you have got to hit him well and truly with your best technique to stop him or drop him. The Errol Spence that I saw against Mikey Garcia will have to worry about what's coming back, but he will also know he's in with a warrior, as I said. Shawn Porter will really have to, though, be wary. It's always difficult fighting a southpaw. It just is. Right? He's got to deal with that stance, first of all. Because if he runs in too recklessly, it's double impact. You put extra power on the guy's shot when you run into it. That is just a given. That is just the gravity of boxing. So I'm thinking Shawn Porter needs to do feints. He has to make Errol Spence, with head movement as well, second guess where Errol Spence is throwing them punches. Because as I said, most opponents for Errol Spence are target practice. Now it could turn out that Errol Spence is just that good that even Shawn Porter ends up target practice. But Shawn Porter has good feet. Errol Spence has good feet, but I don't think they're the fastest feet. They're sure, they're certain, but I don't think they're the fastest feet, right? What the problem Shawn Porter may face, which he doesn't face often in his career, is that he is fighting a guy that is at least as good on the inside as him, right? Errol Spence is a good inside fighter. There's no question about it. And usually, this is sort of a unique thing when I watch Errol Spence. Usually when a smaller guy gets in the inside against a bigger one, the bigger guy sort of struggles to shorten his arms to throw punches and hooks. Errol Spence does that well. You get inside an Errol Spence and them long arms, suddenly he can make them move like small arms. He can shake them down to size, throw hooks, throw uppercuts, throw short jabs, throw hooks to the body, right? Shawn Porter, to me, has to get so close to his chest that it makes neon impossible for Errol Spence to shorten those punches. If there is any gaps, the intelligence, the ring IQ, the execution of Errol Spence will make him pay. But like I said, Shawn Porter is not scared of pain. This is a guy that doesn't mind paying his rent in boxing, right? He'll take a shot. Somewhat reminds me of Ricky Hatton. This fight could be, a Ricky Hatton Costa Zoo. But as I said, I'm expecting Errol Spence to take this 7-5, something like that. Maybe 8-4, but a very, very tough, hard 8-4. And I think where this fight is won is Shawn Porter has success, or it's maybe evenish on the inside close. But as Shawn Porter starts to tire a little bit, he drops off to the centre of the ring, and then Errol Spence can use that same quality jab that he used to beat Mikey Garcia with and pick up the points from there, right? I think Errol Spence will, by the 6th to 7th rounds, not be so keen to just try and blast Shawn Porter out there. I think he'll be happy to be putting rounds in the bank as the fight wears on. But I see Shawn Porter making a good start. I see Errol Spence, dare I say, even getting busted up. Maybe by a clash of heads. The orthodox and the southpaw. Shawn Porter's style anyway. Anybody? But I see this fight just about going Errol Spence's way. A close 8-4 fight where every round is sort of close until fatigue sets in. Shawn Porter ends up backing up a bit, maybe because he took some body shots as well. Maybe gravity's setting in. And in their moments, you see, this is the thing about a quality boxer. You give them time and space, that's what they want. They can start to pick their shots then. They can start to do what they are schooled at best. And that's when I think Errol Spence's best moments will come into play. After the mid-rounds, as it goes on, very similar to Floyd Mayweather, Ricky Hatton. When Ricky Hatton was getting a bit tired and wasn't able to close the space down as much, Floyd's fast hands, jab, and, very, very good right hand was starting to time Ricky Hatton at distance. He was able to get full purchase on those punches, right? I know Errol Spence is different to Floyd, but didn't Floyd Mayweather fight very well on the inside again? The way he could shorten his hands and throw hooks and uppercuts. That's the sort of thing that Errol Spence does do a little bit similar. He's obviously more powerful than Floyd Mayweather, I think. However, it's all relative. Floyd was knocking out world-class fighters. Ricky Hatton was a world-class fighter, right? We've yet to see Errol Spence knock out a prime world-class fighter. Kell Brook had took murder from Gennady Golovkin before he fought Errol Spence. That was not the best Kell Brook we could have seen. I know Errol Spence stopped him, but Floyd Mayweather, he put guys down 5 or 6 times. Maybe I'm seeing an illusion. Maybe Floyd was a better puncher than we imagined because his punches were getting results against the best. We've yet to see Errol Spence face, much of the best, if that makes sense. Maybe Shawn Porter takes these shots very well. Who knows? Maybe Errol Spence's power, again, it's relative. Maybe against world-class fighters, the power is not what we think it is. But I think it's there. I do think he's a bigger puncher than Floyd. But again, it's yet to be seen, right? Didn't it turn out in Pacquiao-Furman? Manny Pacquiao ended up the puncher. Pacquiao's power was worse on Furman than Furman's was on Pacquiao. Why? Again, Furman fought some good opposition, but there's a lot of B and C level fighters there that, when you think about it, Manny Pacquiao would have stopped them. That's all Keith Furman did. It's relative, and then when they met on the night, you realised Manny Pacquiao is a guy that's been hitting guys like Marquez, Mayweather, the elite. No wonder so many of them went the distance with him, because they are the best of the best. Had Manny Pacquiao fought the lower level tier for all this time, he'd have had more knockouts. Furman was fighting a lot of lower tier until he moved right up, and since then, Keith Furman has not knocked out one world-class fighter. Pacquiao ended up the punch. It was Pacquiao that dropped Furman. It was Pacquiao that hurt Furman. It was Pacquiao that was more effective. Who knows? This could mean Shawn Porter's punches might have a big effect on Errol Spence. We just don't know. It's relative. But I'm going with just that. Shawn Porter's legs to slow down as the fight goes on because he's going to have to work so hard. I think Errol Spence being bigger will have the sense on the inside to clinch and lean at times too. That will take some of the steam out. And when Shawn Porter is backed up a little bit, that's where Errol Spence's reach can come into play. Size and reach. His jab. Maybe the southpaw stance starts to pay dividends because when you lose concentration, you tend to go back to type. Things you were doing well early, fatigue sets in, you start making mistakes. That's what I see Shawn Porter doing. But when that bell finally goes and Errol Spence's hand is raised, whether that is Manny Pacquiao up in the stand, whether it's Terence Crawford, whoever it is who's next in line to face Errol Spence, they'll be thinking, thank you very much, Shawn Porter. You have just taken some years off this guy because he looks like he's had a tough night tonight. That's what I think. If Errol Spence blows Shawn Porter out of the water, that is scary. That is scary. But I'm expecting an Errol Spence win in a tough fight. But this won't be the end of Shawn Porter. People will say, what a fighter. Even though he lost, what a tough guy. And potentially, maybe in the future, he'll win a title again. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And this is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out, brother.